came up with we have to lease 100 spaces down there, so there'll be space in the lower and upper areas. Right now, the total site's 8.5 acres. There hasn't been a determination of what the other uses would be on the land. That would be for a future determination. But the advantages of this, there's basically 4 advantages. First, it would relocate the school administrative offices into the town hall school administrative building. It would create a great space for the administration office. We'd be able to increase their space and workspace, as well as increasing space in the middle school. There would be approximately another 6,000 square feet of space that the middle school could utilize. Secondly, it would co-locate the town hall and school administrative offices. While it would increase, though we have a good communication between the 2 departments, by putting this together, it would increase communication and also some shared space. There would be meeting space for town hall, there'd be meeting space for the schools, and in certain cases, if there was a large meeting room that the school would have to use, the space would be available. So there would be shared uses, and there may be some shared economies regarding utilities and such by combining the 2. Third, and Mr. Solomon will address this, it recycles the Bachelor School in the Historic District. We keep it historically significant. At this point, there wouldn't be any structural changes in that building from the exterior, from the on the historical end of it, and it would stay such. And finally, and probably more important to the people of North Reading, it returns civic activity to the center of town. At this point, you do have the Bachelor and the Public Safety and Library, but the town hall, where primarily most of your public meetings are taking place, are on the other side of the community, and would return it to the center, to its historic aspects of it. So that is why F.U.M.P supported this. At $4.4 million, it's an excellent bargain to get this project going forward. Now, on the school side of this, I think Dr. Crum would like to speak toward that.
Thanks, Tom. Good evening. To add to what the town administrator has said, the school administration offices are currently located here in the middle school. It's said that we are tenants at will, and that is exactly our situation. We are a growing school system. The middle school continues to grow, and at the same time, there is a need to provide very direct support to staff members as well as the community through the central office. So I'd like to give you a sense as to what our central office consists of. In addition to the superintendent's office and the administrative assistant to the superintendent, we maintain a business office that includes accounting, payroll, and personnel. We're dealing with over 250 employees. We have to store records in payroll and accounting for the entire school system. We also maintain an office for pupil personnel services. We're currently using what was originally built as the nurse's office in this building, and the director of pupil personnel, along with an assistant to the director and 2 secretaries, occupy that space. We also have a school psychologist. You can't get into the room because it's a closet here off the large group room, but the school psychologist serves the needs of 2,500 students, testing, diagnostic work, and so forth. We also have a curriculum office with a director of curriculum who also supports technology, and her secretary. This is an extremely busy office. We are constantly providing staff development training, and at a given time of the year, we're running anywhere from 15 to 20 courses for teachers for professional development. 80 to 100 teachers are involved in those programs at any given time. And we run a number of committees that are looking at curriculum frameworks and other elements of education reform. Also associated with the curriculum office is the technology support. This is a very large enterprise for a school system. We're providing networking services. We do have located in the middle school the central part of that network as it feeds out into the other buildings, and it requires constant support. Also located in a storage area here at the middle school is the supervisor of buildings and grounds, who is responsible for 5 buildings and over 50 acres of land. And again, it's very, very cramped space. We maintain a conference room for meetings here, which is adjacent to my office. Again, school department also supports a school committee that meets every other week and sometimes more. When all of these meetings are taking place, we are tearing down our middle school library, rearranging desks, tables, and chairs to allow these meetings to occur. For example, tomorrow morning, we will be closing the middle school library as we have over 25 architects and engineering firms who will be here contemplating the secondary school's feasibility study. And that is simply one example. The superintendent's office and the business office are open to the outside community. We have parents and students coming in all the time, and certainly vendors in all aspects of education. So again, as Mr. Younger indicated, it's not just a question of space. We need the space administratively. We feel that the Batchelder School can provide that space, and then to connect it to the historic fact that it is still a school, and it will be retained, at least in part, with a school-related function. And personally, as superintendent, I feel very good about that. I'm also looking forward to the continued growth of shared resources. You may be aware that the school department has joined with the town in coordinating its accounting and payroll services. And again, the closer proximity of that kind of relationship in the Batchelder School would greatly enhance our work. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Solomon, who's going to talk about, I suspect, some of the historic issues related to the batch.
Let me just add my good evening, everybody, and again, thank you folks for coming. There isn't terribly much new that I'm going to add, and I will be brief, that's the good part. But I do want to give you a slightly different perspective, one that a significant percentage of the town has been concerned about over the last several years. As has been alluded to a couple times, the question keeps coming up, what about the batch, when we go to look through various proposals. As chair of the Historic District Commission, and at this point representing all the different historical interests in town, there are three primary reasons that my commission needs some involvement here. The first is the Batchelder itself, its public building status that we've been talking about, and I'll talk a little bit about in a moment. The second is the modulars that have been mentioned already once, that are here on a temporary basis, that are not really appropriate where they are, but we did them because it was necessary for the needs of the school system, and in doing the right thing for the town, they're there on a temporary basis. And the third is that the public safety building, which currently houses police and fire, while not a historic structure itself, does reside in the protected historic district, so that's of interest to us as well. So when we talk about the batch itself, first and foremost is its status as a historic structure. Built back in 1917, the only school in town until the 50s, it's important that we protect and find an appropriate use for this building moving forward. As I said earlier, it is one of the cornerstones of our historic district, which also makes it important to protect. One of the things that we need to think about when we look at reuse of a building such as this is what I'll call an unobtrusive use. Things like no additions, things like keeping the green space as much as possible, finding a way to keep an area that, whether it be July 4th or whatever else might be happening, is a place in town that's come to have a certain set of expectations, a certain look to it. For those who may have been in town long enough, we messed up the building once, if you will, with the big addition on the back, and it's important that we don't further change the structure of the building. If we look at it also, it's important to understand, as was alluded to earlier by Marcy, if we were to look at keeping the Batchelder as a school, it doesn't fit, based on current standards, in the building in which it's currently sitting, which would necessitate keeping the modulars, or doing an addition, or something else that really is not appropriate for the area in which it sits. And as I alluded to earlier, at some point in the near future, those portables really should come down, which again pushes us the need to look for a greater solution. As was said earlier, I will reiterate, one of the important benefits I think that we get out of this project is bringing Town Hall back to the Historic Center. For those who may not know, the current library building was where Town Hall had been. The Damon Tavern, the recently renovated beige building next to it, where the library had been. It's important to look at all of these structures as a whole, which is why we created the district concept in the first place. Again, as was mentioned by, I think, Mr. Younger, we need to look at the notion of keeping important town-owned buildings in town hands for town use, so that the townspeople can use them and enjoy them. And so in conjunction with the Damon Tavern that we recently renovated, in conjunction with the ongoing work that we do to take care of protecting the third meeting house and the small building next to the Damon Tavern, the Putnam House, it's important that we protect this building and keep it in its current structure so that future generations will get the same town center that we've been able to enjoy. Thank you.
Moving on to the next phase of the proposal is the renovations necessary to accommodate the needs of the middle and the high school. And call on Dr. Troughton to address those. Dr. Troughton's running into technical difficulties.
I'm finishing my 6th year here in North Reading as superintendent of schools, and during that time, the enrollment of students in our school system has increased by 600 students. So 6 years, 600 students. We're increasing at about a rate of 100 students a year, which on a percentage basis, in comparison to most other communities within the Commonwealth, we are certainly on the high side of enrollment increases. When I arrived in North Reading 6 years ago, I set out a 3-pronged plan to address what was a projected enrollment increase. And the first part of that plan has long been accomplished, and that was the reopening of the little school in 1995. The second part of that plan was to address the immediate needs of then our 3 elementary schools, to expand the little school, and that has been accomplished, to expand and renovate the Hood School, and we're in the middle of that. And you've also heard the presentation to build a new elementary school at Swan Pond. And again, not only to address this rapidly increasing enrollment, but to also link it to various program needs. The third part of that plan, which in 1994 seemed to be way in the distance, but we're here now addressing the issues of the secondary schools, the middle school, and the high school. So my job tonight is to outline what the feasibility study is all about and what our preliminary work will accomplish in looking at our middle school and high school. At the April town meeting this past April, the town approved $25,000 to conduct a feasibility study. In essence, this feasibility study will bring in professional architectural and engineering services to look very closely at the middle school and the high school. They would utilize the facilities audits that we, as a school department, maintain generally on a 5 to 6 year basis, and they will expand upon that. Their scope, which is very clear, is to take a look at the 10-year space projections for both the middle school and the high school, to examine very closely the existing space as it's currently structured, and to evaluate through conversations with principals and staff what will be the current and future program needs. And then as a result, they will propose renovation needs and additions if that is needed, and they will also link that closely to a cost analysis. And our goal is to complete the feasibility study by the beginning of September in preparation for the October town meeting. You've seen this slide before. The middle school you're currently sitting in was first constructed over 35 years ago. It is beginning to show its age in terms of some of the core infrastructure. So we'll talk about some of this. The population here will exceed 700 students, and we will continue to house students in grades 6 through 8. Give you some specifics on the scope of the work that we'll be asking in the feasibility study. There's a very definite need for additional classroom space here at the middle school. You will find, if you took a tour of this building, a number of the classrooms over the years have been subdivided so that we're essentially dealing with half classroom spaces for 20 to 25 or sometimes 30 students. The library and media center is not up to current standards, cannot meet the program needs, and certainly does not meet any needs of technology. The cafeteria is currently functioning from as early as 10:15, 10:30 in the day and well after 1 o'clock. It's a very busy space. As the enrollment increases, we certainly will need to take a look at it. The science labs, which are along this corridor, will not meet the growing enrollment needs, and we need to take